They hate it when you rise without their permission, when you smile without their validation, when you wake up, heal, and realize you were never the broken one. That's the beginning of their unraveling, because narcissists feed off control. They thrive in the shadows of your insecurity. They survive by manipulating the narrative, twisting your truth, and making themselves the center of your universe. But what if I told you the most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all? It's living free. It's healing. The real torment to a narcissist isn't what you say. It's who you become when they can no longer dictate your worth. You see, narcissists build kingdoms out of mirrors where only their reflection matters. They love to be admired, adored, feared, or worshipped, but they can't stand to be ignored. They can't stand irrelevance. They can't stomach being forgotten. So if you really want to torture a narcissist, don't fight them in the mud. Leave them there and walk away clean. That's the kind of power they can't control, and it burns them from the inside out. Narcissists thrive on attention. It's the oxygen they breathe, the fuel that keeps their ego alive. Every reaction you give, whether it's anger, tears, or even desperate pleas for understanding, is food for their dysfunctional soul. That's why silence is one of the most powerful weapons you can use. It doesn't just frustrate them, it destabilizes their entire identity. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your heart, when you stop justifying your worth to someone who was never listening in the first place, you reclaim control. And that control burns them in ways no argument ever could. See, narcissists set traps made out of words. They poke and twist and manipulate until you explode. Then they point the finger and say, see, you're the problem. It's a game, a cycle. And every time you speak into it, you step back onto the chessboard they control. But when you refuse to play, when you look at them and say absolutely nothing, it confuses them. It infuriates them. Because silence isn't weakness, it's power. It's the declaration that you are no longer available for manipulation. There's something sacred about silence. It's a boundary that doesn't need to be explained. It says you're not worth the energy it takes to respond. And that is a direct attack on the narcissist's deepest fear, being irrelevant. See, they don't fear confrontation. They fear disconnection, because as long as they're on your mind, they have power. As long as you're still trying to explain, still trying to fix, still trying to be understood, they know they still matter to you. But the second you go silent, the second you stop arguing, stop crying, stop reacting, that's the moment they start to panic. To a narcissist, silence feels like abandonment, like rejection, like the mirror they once used to reflect their own greatness is now gone. And without that mirror, they're forced to look at themselves, and they hate what they see. Your silence creates a void, and in that void, they are left with their own unhealed wounds, their own emptiness, their own inability to connect in a meaningful way. You didn't even have to lift a finger. You just stopped responding. And let's be clear, choosing silence isn't about being passive, it's about being deliberate. It's the choice to disengage from chaos. It's the decision to protect your peace at all costs. Because peace is not something you earn through explanation, it's something you claim by walking away. You're not responsible for teaching a narcissist how to treat you. You're responsible for removing yourself from spaces where you are disrespected. And silence is often the only language they understand. Because this doesn't mean it's easy. Silence takes strength. It takes restraint. It takes the courage to sit in discomfort rather than chase closure you'll never get. But in that quiet, you grow. You heal. You reclaim parts of yourself that got buried under the noise of their control. And slowly, your identity begins to detach from their narrative. You stop seeing yourself through their twisted lens. And you start seeing yourself through the truth. Whole, worthy, powerful. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of strength. It's the refusal to be baited, manipulated, or diminished. It's the most dignified way to say, you no longer have access to me. And for a narcissist, that is torture. Because the moment you go silent is the moment you take your power back and leave them echoing in a room that no longer holds you. Boundaries are not just lines you draw in the sand. They are declarations of self-worth, and to a narcissist, they are unbearable. Why? Because narcissists believe they are entitled to your time, your energy, your emotions, and your life. They don't just want access, they want control. So the moment you begin to set boundaries, especially unapologetically, you start to dismantle their illusion of dominance. It's like putting up a mirror and forcing them to confront the truth. You are not theirs to manipulate. You are not an extension of their ego. You are your own person. But it's not just about creating boundaries. Anyone can draw a line. The real power comes in enforcing them. That's where most people fall apart. They say no, but then allow guilt, manipulation, or fear to turn that no into a shaky maybe. And narcissists are experts at exploiting that gray area. They will test your limits relentlessly. They'll act wounded, offended, shocked, anything to make you feel like you're doing something wrong for protecting your peace. But you have to stand firm, not with hostility, but with clarity, not with rage, but with resolve. Every time you reinforce a boundary, you teach the narcissist that their tactics no longer work on you. And that drives them mad. Because boundaries mean you have a sense of identity that isn't dependent on them. Boundaries mean you are no longer looking to them for permission to exist. And for a narcissist who needs to be the center of your world, that realization is devastating. They feel powerless, not because you're attacking them, but because you're no longer feeding them. Setting boundaries will cost you some people, but it will never cost you the ones who truly respect and care for you. Narcissists, however, see boundaries as betrayal. They take it personally because they were never in it for mutual respect. They were in it for control. So don't be surprised when they lash out, when they try to make you feel guilty or accuse you of being selfish or cold. That's part of the manipulation. They will say anything to get back inside the space you locked them out of. But that locked space, that's your sanctuary. That's where you build peace. That's where you heal. And the more you enforce those boundaries, the more peace begins to grow. It starts small, maybe just a moment of clarity, a day without anxiety, a conversation where you don't second guess yourself. But over time, those moments add up. And soon, you find yourself becoming someone new. Not someone hardened or bitter, but someone wise, someone free. Boundaries don't just protect you from narcissists. They attract the right people to you. The kind of people who love without trying to control, who support without suffocating, who give without keeping score. And those relationships, they are worth everything the narcissist tried to take from you. Remember, narcissists aren't used to limits. They're used to entitlement. So when you stop apologizing for saying no, when you stop compromising your values to keep the peace, when you stop explaining why you won't be available for emotional abuse anymore, you shift the entire dynamic. You are no longer the victim of their story. You become the author of your own. And that shift is terrifying to them because they can't dominate someone who knows who they are. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't need their approval. Boundaries strip the narcissist of their illusion of superiority. And when you hold those boundaries firm again and again, you slowly take back every inch of yourself that you once gave away. That's not just protection, that's power. Transformation in silence is a form of power that narcissists never see coming. They expect you to stay stuck. They expect you to crumble without them. They expect your identity to remain tangled in the chaos they created because they believe your life revolves around them, and once they're gone, you'll fall apart. That's how deeply rooted their illusion of control is. So when you begin to heal quietly, evolve privately, and rebuild in the shadows, it tortures them more than any confrontation ever could. They want to witness your suffering. They want the satisfaction of knowing they still have power over you. But when you go dark, not in bitterness, but in purpose, they lose the only leverage they ever had, your reaction. Blowing up in silence isn't about revenge, it's about rising. It's about choosing your peace over their performance. It's the decision to take your hands off the drama and place them on the wheel of your destiny. You're no longer fighting to be heard, no longer begging to be understood, no longer wasting breath trying to fix what was never yours to fix. Instead, you shift your focus inward. You start building the life you were meant to live, not the one they tried to define for you. And in doing so, you become untouchable. What makes this transformation so painful for a narcissist is that it happens beyond their sight. You're not calling them to announce your growth. You're not posting for their attention. You're not trying to make them jealous. You're simply moving on, quietly, strongly, powerfully. And when they do check in, because they always do, they're met with silence. No breadcrumbs, no invitations, no signs of the person they once manipulated. That's when it hits them. You're no longer playing the game. You've left the arena altogether. Narcissists rely on you needing them. They rely on your brokenness to affirm their importance. They use your confusion as proof of their superiority. But when you evolve into someone who doesn't flinch at their name, doesn't ache for their validation, and doesn't collapse at their absence, they lose everything. Because they were never invested in your wholeness. They were invested in your dependence. So your growth becomes the one thing they cannot fake, cannot control, and cannot destroy. And the most powerful part, you don't owe them a single explanation. You don't need to prove your healing to anyone. You just keep showing up for yourself day after day, step by step, and let your transformation speak louder than any argument ever could. You don't heal to prove a point. You heal to be free. And in that freedom, you find the life that told you you'd never have without them. Let them wonder. Let them hear about your progress from a distance. Let them wrestle with the silence you leave behind, because that silence is not emptiness. It's evidence. It's evidence that you've moved beyond the version of yourself that tolerated their manipulation. It's proof that you are no longer a character in the script they wrote for you. You are the author now, and your story no longer includes them. Healing in silence is not weakness, it's strategy, it's protection. It's the divine process of becoming so grounded, so focused, so whole, that the very mention of their name feels like another life you've already outgrown. Narcissists want to be the reason you rise or fall, so when you rise quietly for no one but yourself, you break the spell, you break their hold, and that, more than anything, is the kind of torture they'll never recover from. Emotional detachment is the kryptonite of a narcissist. They don't just crave attention, they demand emotional investment. They want your reactions, your tears, your confusion, your rage. Every ounce of emotion you pour into them feeds their ego and validates their sense of superiority. But when you detach, when you stop giving them that emotional fuel, they begin to suffocate under the weight of their own emptiness. Because without your emotional energy to absorb and manipulate, they're left with nothing but their own hollowness, and that is unbearable for them. The narcissist isn't afraid of your anger. They love it. They know exactly how to provoke it and how to twist it to make you look like the villain. They're not shaken by your sadness either. In fact, your tears make them feel powerful. What they can't stand is indifference. They can't handle silence. They crumble when they realize they no longer have the power to make you feel anything for them. That emotional vacuum you create when you stop responding becomes a mirror they're forced to look into, and they hate what they see because for the first time they see themselves without the mask your emotions help them wear. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about yourself. It means you stop caring about how they see you, how they interpret your silence, or how they respond to your growth. It's the inner shift from needing to be understood to being content with your own peace. You begin to understand that you don't need to win the argument or explain your side one more time. You don't need them to finally get it, because you finally do. You understand the pattern, the manipulation, the emotional hooks they used to control you. And now you've removed those hooks one by one and walked away without a word. They will try to pull you back. They will test you with fake apologies, with sudden kindness, with veiled threats, or accusations designed to guilt you into reacting. That's how the cycle restarts. But you've seen the pattern now, and you've decided to break it. That's what emotional detachment looks like. Not just walking away physically, but walking away internally. You are no longer accessible to them. They don't get to live in your mind rent-free. They don't get to own your moods, your thoughts, your decisions. You've evicted them from the space they once ruled, and they don't know what to do with that kind of rejection. When you stop reacting, you change the entire dynamic. You force them to face the consequences of their behavior, not through confrontation, but through absence. You're no longer part of the narrative they're trying to control. You've stepped out of the role they cast you in, and without you feeding into the drama, they lose their stage, they lose their audience, they lose the power they once held over your life. Now, the most freeing part of emotional detachment is what it gives back to you. It gives you clarity. You begin to see how much of your energy was being drained by trying to manage their moods, fix their problems, or anticipate their reactions. You realize how much of yourself was being sacrificed in the name of survival. And now you get to reclaim that energy. You get to redirect it into healing, into purpose, into real relationships built on mutual respect. The narcissist will feel tortured by your emotional indifference because it shatters their illusion that they are unforgettable. But that's the point. You were never meant to stay broken for someone who only loved your weakness. Detachment is not giving up, it's rising up. It's the decision to no longer let someone else's dysfunction determine your emotional landscape. And once you've made that decision, there's no going back, because the freedom of detachment is far too powerful to ever trade for chains again. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood powers in the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. Most people think forgiveness means excusing what was done or pretending the pain didn't happen. But forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't about letting the narcissist off the hook. It's about unhooking yourself. It's about breaking the emotional chains they still have wrapped around your heart. Because as long as you carry the bitterness, the rage, the need for justice, you are still tied to them. They still have a piece of your peace. And you deserve to take that peace back. A narcissist wants to be unforgettable. They want to leave a mark, not out of love, but out of dominance. So when you stay angry, when you replay the hurt, when you let their actions control your emotions, even after they're gone, you're doing exactly what they hoped you would. You're keeping their presence alive in your mind. That's why forgiveness is not weakness, it's rebellion. It's how you declare that they no longer get to shape your identity, your future, or your spirit. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you let them back in. In fact, in most cases, the healthiest thing you can do is keep them far from your life. But while you're keeping them out of your environment, you also have to keep them out of your soul. Because unresolved pain turns into poison. It eats away at your joy, your trust, your ability to connect with the people who actually deserve your love. And a narcissist doesn't deserve to have that kind of lasting effect. They already took too much, don't let them take more. The process of forgiveness is not overnight. It's not a simple decision, it's a daily choice. Some days you'll feel strong, and other days the memories will creep in. But every time you choose to let go of the bitterness, every time you refuse to feed the pain, every time you release them from your mental courtroom, you're choosing freedom. And little by little, you stop feeling like a victim and start feeling like a survivor, then a thrive, then a new creation altogether. One of the most powerful parts of forgiveness is how much it confuses the narcissist. They want your obsession. They want you locked in a cycle of emotional reaction. But forgiveness robs them of that. They may expect anger. They may even hope for revenge. But when you forgive, not for them, but for yourself, you take the final piece of power back. You close the book. You walk out of the prison they built. And you don't even slam the door behind you. You just leave. Forgiveness is not forgetting. You remember, but you remember differently. You no longer see yourself as weak for enduring the abuse. You see yourself as strong for surviving it. You no longer look at the situation through the lens of shame or confusion, but through the clarity of truth. You begin to realize that their actions had nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their emptiness. And when that truth settles in, the grip they had on your heart loosens until it disappears. The final form of healing is peace, not just the kind that comes from time, but the kind that comes from forgiveness. Because peace doesn't grow in the soil of revenge. It blooms where bitterness has been uprooted. And you owe it to yourself to live a life where your mind is free, your soul is light, and your heart is no longer haunted by people who never deserved you. Forgive not because they earned it, but because you are worth the freedom that comes with it. That's the kind of release a narcissist can never understand, and it's the most powerful kind of torture you can ever inflict. The ultimate form of torture for a narcissist is seeing you live a life of joy, peace, and success without them. Nothing bruises their ego more than being forgotten, replaced, or even worse, irrelevant. Narcissists thrive on the illusion that you will always need them, always think about them, always be affected by their presence or absence. They want to believe they are the center of your world, even if they destroyed it. So when you rise from the rubble they left behind and begin to build a life that no longer includes their chaos, you shatter their illusion entirely, and for them, that is torment. Living well is the kind of revenge that doesn't require a single word. You don't need to announce your healing, prove your worth, or seek their recognition. You just live. You take care of your mental health. You pursue your goals. You surround yourself with people who love and respect you. You laugh again. You smile without faking it. You reclaim the parts of you they try to destroy. And the beauty of it is, they don't get to take credit for it. Your healing isn't about them, it's about you. And that is what burns the most. A narcissist expects to be the main chapter in your story. But when you write new chapters filled with growth, transformation, and authentic happiness, they become just a footnote, a blurry name in the past. They hate that because they need to believe they were unforgettable, irreplaceable, powerful. But the more you flourish, the more irrelevant they become. They start to see that your world was never dependent on them. It was only paused. And now, the play continues without their role. The narcissist may try to circle back. They may resurface when they see you thriving because nothing triggers them more than your success without their involvement. But you won't need to slam the door. You'll simply be too far gone, too focused, too rooted in your worth to be pulled back into the mess. And your indifference, your calm, your refusal to react, that's what will torment them more than any confrontation ever could. Because they're no longer the storm in your sky, they're just a cloud that passed. Living well doesn't mean pretending you were never hurt. It means deciding that the pain no longer gets to define you. It means giving yourself permission to feel joy again, to trust again, to believe in yourself again. You rise not out of spite, but out of strength. Because the real win isn't proving the narcissist wrong, it's proving to yourself that you are always capable of healing, growing, and thriving all along. And here's the secret. They were never the source of your power. You just forgot for a while. You forgot how strong you were, how much light you carried, how worthy you always were of love that lifts rather than crushes. But now you remember. And every step you take forward is a reminder that you survived what was meant to break you. That kind of survival becomes a testimony, a quiet, powerful declaration that you are not defined by who hurt you. You are defined by who you chose to become after the hurt. Narcissists feed on attention, on relevance, on the belief that they left a permanent scar. So when you walk into your future not with wounds, but with wisdom, not with fear, but with fire, they can't stand it. Your joy, your wholeness, your freedom, it all screams the one truth they can't bear to hear. They didn't win. And that truth, lived out in the way you rise, is the most satisfying, soul-deep kind of one that doesn't seek to hurt them, only to heal you, and in doing so you win in every way that truly matters.